still working late shifts at a sporting goods store in a downtown shopping complex. The store wasn't in a mall exactly. It was part of one of those mixed-use developments with restaurants on the ground floor, offices above, and a 6-level parking garage attached to the whole thing. During the day, it was always busy, but after about 9 p.m., especially on weeknights, the whole place emptied out fast. Most nights, by the time we finished closing, counted the tills, and locked up, it was closer to 10:30. By then, almost every store in the complex was dark, the restaurants were winding down, and the parking garage had that dead, echoing feeling that makes even normal sounds seem wrong. I never liked walking to my car alone, but I did it all the time. The garage was technically secure. There were cameras, emergency call boxes, and a gate arm at the exit, where you either paid or scanned your ticket. Management acted like that meant there was nothing to worry about. The night this happened was a Thursday. It had rained earlier, so the concrete floors in the garage were still damp, and the air smelled like wet cement and car exhaust. We had been unusually busy, so I didn't get out of the store until almost 10:50. By then, the rest of the staff was already gone. One cashier left with her boyfriend, and my manager used the elevator down to the employee lot on the opposite side of the complex. I parked on level 5 because that was the only place I could find a spot when I came in. I remember checking my phone before leaving the back hallway of the store. No messages. Battery at 18%. I shoved it in my pocket, pushed through the stairwell door, and started up toward my level. The stairwell was concrete, narrow, and loud. Every footstep bounced off the walls. Halfway up to level 5, I heard another sound above me. A door opening, then closing. I stopped and listened. Nothing. That wasn't too strange on its own. Other employees from the complex used the garage too. Maybe someone else was heading to their car. I kept climbing. When I reached level 5 and pushed through the door, the first thing I noticed was how empty it looked. Not just mostly empty, completely empty. My car was parked about halfway down the row near one of the support columns. I could see it immediately, sitting by itself under one of the overhead lights. The second thing I noticed was a shopping bag on the ground. It was lying a few spaces away from my car, tipped over on its side. Plain white paper bag, no logo, damp from the wet floor. I slowed down when I saw it. There weren't any stores in the complex that used bags like that. It didn't make sense for it to be there by itself on an otherwise empty level. I glanced around, expecting to see someone loading a car or coming back for it. Nobody. I told myself someone probably dropped it earlier and drove off without noticing. I kept walking. As I got closer to my car, I heard something behind me. Not footsteps exactly. More like the squeak of a shoe shifting against damp concrete. I turned around immediately. The level behind me was empty. No movement near the stairwell door. No one between the columns. Nothing. For a few seconds, I just stood there listening. All I could hear was the hum of the lights and the faint dripping sound of water somewhere farther down the garage. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket so suddenly that I actually jumped. It was my friend Maya texting me about switching shifts next week. I remember feeling stupidly relieved at having something normal happen. I answered quickly while walking the last few steps to my car. When I unlocked it, the headlights flashed once. That was when I saw him. Just for a second. In the reflection of the driver's side window, behind me and farther back near the stairwell door, there was the outline of a person standing between two columns. I spun around so fast I dropped my keys. No one was there. I stared at that spot for at least 10 seconds, trying to control my breathing. I told myself it had to be the reflection of a column or shadow distorted by the glass. But deep down, I knew what I saw. I picked up my keys, got in my car, and locked the doors immediately. I should have left right then. Instead, I sat there for a moment with the engine off, trying to calm myself down before driving. That was was another mistake. Because once I was inside the car and not panicking as much, I noticed something I had missed. My windshield wiper on the driver's side was lifted. Just that one. Not broken, not bent. Lifted up away from the glass. I never leave it like that. I felt my stomach drop. That meant someone had been at my car while I was still in the store. Or while I was walking up the stairs. I started the engine right away. The radio came on louder than I expected, and I shut it off. Then I put the car in reverse and checked the mirrors. That was when I saw movement. A man stepped out from behind a column about 6 spaces behind me. Not running. Not waving. Just stepping out into the open like he had been waiting for me to look. He was wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap. I couldn't make out his face clearly, but I could tell he was looking straight at my car. Then he started walking toward me. I threw the car into drive instead and pulled out too fast, tires squealing slightly on the damp concrete. He didn't run after me. He just kept walking at the same steady pace, which somehow felt worse. The exit ramp curved downward in a spiral toward the payment gates on level 1. As I drove down, I kept checking the rearview mirror. I didn't see headlights behind me. I didn't see anyone on foot either. By the time I reached the gate arm, I had almost convinced myself I was fine. Then I scanned my ticket. The machine flashed red. Invalid ticket. I stared at it, confused, then scanned it again. Same message. My hands were shaking now. I looked around for the help button and hit it. Nothing happened for a second. Then a distorted voice came through the speaker. "Please wait for assistance." I waited. No one answered after that. I hit the button again. Same recorded message. At that point, I looked in my rearview mirror and saw something that made my chest tighten. The man from level 5 was walking down the ramp. He wasn't running. He was just coming straight toward the exit gate. There should have been no reason for him to leave his car and walk 5 levels down unless he was following me. I rolled my window up all the way and hit the help button again, this time over and over. Still nothing except the same message. The man kept getting closer. I threw the car into reverse, planning to back up and try another gate on the other side. That was when headlights swung around the corner behind me. Another car. It came down the ramp slowly and stopped several lengths back, blocking the lane. I couldn't see the driver because of the glare, but the timing was too perfect. One man walking toward my window from the front. Another car behind me cutting off my escape. My whole body went cold. I yanked the wheel and backed up onto the striped area between the lanes, tires bumping over the curb edge. There was barely enough room, but I got around the parked car behind me before it could move forward. Then his car lurched forward. I shot back up the ramp instead of down, taking the turns too fast and nearly hitting the wall on level 2. My first thought was to get back to the upper levels, where there might be another exit, or at least a call box. I pulled onto level 3 and saw an emergency call box mounted on a pillar near the elevator lobby. I aimed straight for it, stopped hard, left the car running, and jumped out with my phone in one hand. The call box button was already lit. I slammed my palm into it. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then a ringing tone. At the same time, I heard tires on the ramp. The other car, it was coming up. I remember shouting into the speaker before anyone even answered, saying someone was following me. I was on level 3. Send police now. A woman's voice came through and said security was on the way and to stay near the box. I looked toward the ramp. The headlights appeared first, washing the concrete wall in white. The car emerged slowly and turned onto the level. Dark sedan. No front plate. It stopped about 30 feet away. The driver didn't get out. Then, from the opposite side of the level, I saw the man on foot step out from the stairwell door. For a moment, both of them just stayed there, one in the car, one standing near the stairwell, like they were trying to decide whether I was still worth approaching now that I was at the call box. Then a new sound echoed through the garage. A siren. Not loud at first, but close enough. The sedan reversed immediately, tires screeching. The man by the stairwell turned and disappeared through the door. I kept talking to the operator, even though I don't remember what I said after that. A security card arrived first, then actual police a couple minutes later. They searched the garage, checked the stairwells, and pulled the camera footage. They found the sedan leaving through a service gate normally used by maintenance. They also found something else. On level 5, near where my car had been parked, the white shopping bag was still there. Inside it was a cheap fluorescent safety vest, a parking garage reflective wand, and a handheld ticket scanner. None of it belonged to the complex. According to the police, the most likely explanation was that the two men were trying to get drivers stranded at the exit by swapping or corrupting tickets, then approaching them as fake garage staff or boxing them in if they panicked. They never caught either one. I quit that job a month later. And even now, if I park in a garage and come back to find my car sitting alone on a level that feels too empty, I don't walk straight to it anymore. I stop, I look at the reflections, and I make sure nobody is waiting for me to unlock the door. I worked at a movie theater for about a year in college, and after this happened, I stopped taking closing shifts. It wasn't an old theater either. It was a newer multiplex attached to a shopping plaza, with 12 auditoriums, bright carpeting, self-serve kiosks, and the kind of lobby that smelled like butter all day. During business hours, it felt too public for anything bad to happen. Families came in, teenagers hung around the arcade machines, and the halls were always loud with trailers and people talking. After midnight, it became a different building. The later shows would end around 12, and once the crowd started thinning out, whole sections of the place went dead quiet. The lobby music still played through the ceiling speakers, but the hallways near the auditoriums felt sealed off from everything else. The carpet swallowed footsteps, the lights were dimmer, and every little sound stood out. The night this happened was a Sunday in late November. We had been packed because of a new horror movie, so by the time we started closing, it was after 12:15. There were only 4 of us left: me, another usher named Colin, the concession girl Jenna, and our shift manager Troy. Jenna finished first and left through the employee exit. Colin and I split the last auditoriums to clean, while Troy stayed in the lobby finishing paperwork. I was assigned auditoriums 9 through 12, which were all the way down the right hallway. Auditorium 12 was usually easy. Auditorium 9 was the biggest and always the worst. I started with 12, then 11. Both were normal. Empty cups, popcorn everywhere, one jacket left behind that I brought to Lost and Found. In Auditorium 10, only one older guy was still inside after the credits. I told him we were closing, and he got up right away. As he passed me, he said, "Thought I was the last one in here." I just nodded because I assumed he meant the last customer. Then I went into Auditorium 9. The movie had ended maybe 10 minutes earlier, so the room was dark except for the floor lights and the last glow on the screen. It had been almost sold out, so I expected a mess. I stepped down to the front, turned around to scan the rows, and saw someone sitting in the middle section. At first, I thought he was asleep. That wasn't unusual with late movies. I started up the aisle and called out, "Hey, theater's closed." No response. I got a little closer. The person was wearing a dark hoodie with the hood up, head down, hands in their lap. I couldn't see a face at all. I said it again, louder. Nothing. I pulled my radio off my belt. "Troy, got one still in 9. Maybe asleep." Static. I tried again. Nothing. Our radios were terrible in some rooms, so I clipped it back on and took another step up the aisle. Then I realized it wasn't a person. It was a hoodie draped over a seat. I actually laughed under my breath from relief. I reached down to pick it up. The hoodie was warm, not room temperature. Warm like somebody had been wearing it seconds earlier. I froze with it in my hand. Then I heard the back exit door click shut. I looked up instantly. The door at the top of the auditorium had a narrow window, and for just a second, I saw a dark shape pass across the glass from the hallway outside. Somebody had been in there with me. I dropped the hoodie and went up the steps fast. When I pushed into the hallway, it was empty. I looked both directions. To the left was the bend back to the lobby. To the right was the dead end with the emergency exit and the doors to auditoriums 10, 11, and 12. No one. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. At that point, I still thought it might be some idiot hiding after the movie. I radioed Troy again as I walked back toward the lobby. Still static. That was when I noticed the lobby music had stopped. We always left the music on until the end of closing. The silence made the whole place feel wrong. When I reached the end of the hallway, the concession gate was already down. The front section of the lobby was dim, and Troy wasn't at the podium. I called his name. No answer. The office door behind concessions was open, but the light inside was off. I checked the side hall and the restroom near the lobby. Empty. Then my radio crackled. Not with Troy's voice. Just static first. Then a low sound that almost seemed like breathing. I said, "Troy, if that's you, this isn't funny." For a second, there was nothing. Then a quiet, distorted voice said, "Come back to 9." I stopped walking. It didn't sound like Troy. It didn't sound like Colin either. I said, "Who is this?" No answer. The radio went dead. I took out my phone to call Troy directly. No signal. I headed toward the employee exit because I figured maybe Troy had gone to the back hall. The door was propped open with a mop bucket. Cold air was coming in from outside. I stepped into the back hall and saw Colin's radio on the floor near the mop sink. That hit me immediately. Colin never took his radio off. I looked through the exit window to the parking lot. Mine and Troy's cars were still there under the lot lights. Colin's was gone. That made no sense. He wouldn't leave without saying anything. Then I saw movement reflected in the dark glass. Behind me. I turned so fast my shoulder hit the door. A man was standing at the far end of the back hall near the projection corridor. He wore dark clothes, no uniform, and he had something draped over one arm. The hoodie from Auditorium 9. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, looking at me. I shoved the exit door open and stepped outside immediately. The alarm should have gone off because that door wasn't supposed to be used after closing, unless somebody disabled it first. No alarm. I ran across the lot toward my car, digging for my keys. Halfway there, I heard the outer door slam open behind me. I looked back once. The man was outside now, walking fast, definitely coming after me. I got in my car, locked the doors, and dropped my keys between the seat and the console the first time I tried to start it. By the time the engine turned over, he was less than 20 feet away. I threw the car into reverse and backed out crooked. As my headlights swung across the front of the theater, I saw Troy by the main entrance waving both arms at me. For 1 second, I thought he wanted me to stop. Then I lowered the window a crack and heard him yell, "Don't stop!" I didn't. I drove straight out to the road and called 911 as soon as I got enough signal. Police met me in a gas station lot a few minutes away, and Troy showed up shortly after in his own car. According to him, he had gone to check the breaker room after some of the hallway audio cut out. On the way back, he saw somebody moving between auditoriums on the camera feed after the building was supposed to be empty. He tried radioing me and Colin, but only static came through by then. When he got to the back hall, he saw the service exit had been tampered with and went outside to look for me. Colin hadn't been attacked. He had gotten sick, left through the employee door earlier than I realized, and somehow forgot to radio anyone before he drove off. That part was just terrible timing. The guy in the theater was never identified. Police later checked the camera footage and figured out what he had done. He entered Auditorium 9 almost 20 minutes before I got there. He sat near the back for a while, then right before I came in, He took off his hoodie, arranged it on a seat to look like a sleeping person, and slipped out through the top exit into the hallway. He made a decoy to draw me farther into the dark room by myself. That's the part that still gets me. Not just that he was in there, that he had planned exactly how to get me alone before I even knew he existed. I quit 2 weeks later, and ever since then, whenever I'm in a movie theater and the credits start rolling, I always turn around at least once to check the rows behind me. Because now I know how easy it is for somebody to stay in a public place after everyone assumes it's empty. I used to go to that laundromat late at night because it was empty. That was the whole reason. During the day, it was always crowded. People waiting for machines, kids running around, someone always sitting too close to you while you folded clothes. At night, especially after midnight, it was usually quiet, sometimes completely empty. That's what I liked about it. It was about 5 minutes from my apartment, in a small strip plaza with a few other businesses, a nail salon, a takeout place, and a convenience store that closed around 10. The laundromat was the only place that stayed open 24 hours. I had gone there late plenty of times before. Nothing had ever happened. That night, I got there a little after 11:45. I had just finished a late shift and didn't have anything clean left for the week. I almost waited until the next day, but I didn't feel like dealing with it. So I grabbed my laundry basket and drove over. The parking lot was mostly dark. Only the row of lights directly in front of the laundromat was on. The rest of the lot faded into shadow. There was one car parked near the far end, away from the entrance. Older SUV, dark color, no lights on. I remember noticing it, but not thinking much of it. Inside, there was one person, a woman standing near the dryers, folding towels into a basket. She looked up when I walked in, gave a quick nod, then went back to what she was doing. The place felt normal. Machines running, TV on in the corner, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I loaded 2 washers near the front window and sat down in one of the chairs by the entrance. For a while, nothing felt off. I was on my phone, barely paying attention to anything else. After about 15 minutes, the woman finished her laundry. She gathered her basket and walked out. I watched her through the window as she crossed the lot, got into her car, and drove away. Then it was just me. The change was immediate, not because anything actually happened, just because of how quiet it got. Without another person there, every sound stood out more. The washers seemed louder, the hum of the lights sharper. Even the air felt different. I remember looking at the reflection in the front window, seeing myself sitting there, and nothing behind me. A few minutes later, the front door opened. I didn't look up right away. I just heard it. Then footsteps. Slow. Measured. When I looked up, there was a man standing just inside the entrance. He wasn't carrying anything. No laundry, no bag. Nothing. He wore a dark jacket over a gray hoodie, with the hood down and a hat pulled low. He looked around the room slowly, like he was taking in everything at once. Then his eyes landed on me. He gave a small nod. I nodded back without thinking. Then he walked further inside, not toward the machines, not toward the change counter. He just moved along the center aisle, looking at the rows of washers and dryers. At first, I assumed he was checking for an open machine, but he didn't stop at any of them. He didn't even look at the controls. He was looking at the glass, the reflections. I lowered my phone slightly, pretending to scroll while watching him. He walked past one row, then another, then stopped near the back. He stood there for a few seconds, then turned slightly, and looked toward me again. Not quickly, not casually. Slowly, like he was checking if I was still paying attention. Then he turned and walked into the restroom. The door swung shut behind him. I let out a breath. I didn't realize I'd been holding it. I told myself it was nothing. People come into places without laundry all the time. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he just needed the bathroom. Still, I kept watching the door. The washers had about 10 minutes left. I told myself I'd leave as soon as they were done. 5 minutes passed, then another. The restroom door didn't open. That's when I started feeling it. Not fear, exactly. Just something off. Like the situation wasn't lining up the way it should. Then the door opened. He stepped out. But he didn't come back into the main area right away. He stayed partially in the hallway, just enough that I could see part of his shoulder. Then he leaned slightly and looked at me, directly. The moment our eyes met, he pulled back out of sight. That was it. That was the moment everything changed. I stood up immediately, went to my washers, started pulling clothes out before the cycle even fully stopped. Water dripped onto the floor as I moved everything into 2 dryers. I didn't care. I just wanted to finish and leave. While I was doing that, I heard something, a soft sound, from the front. I turned. There was another man outside, standing near the window, looking in. He didn't knock at first. He just stood there. Then he tapped on the glass. Twice. Not loud. Just enough to get attention. I felt my chest tighten. I looked back toward the hallway. The first man stepped out. Fully visible now. He looked at the second man, then at me, then back at the door. That's when it became clear. They were together. I walked quickly to the front door and turned the latch. Locked. The man outside stepped closer, pointed at the door, then at the open sign, like he expected me to let him in. I didn't move. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Slow. Approaching. "Open it," the first man said. His voice was calm, flat, like this was something normal. I backed away, pulled out my phone. The moment he saw it, he stopped. Outside, the second man moved out of view. Not leaving, just stepping to the side. That made it worse. I dialed 911. My hands were shaking. I kept my eyes on the first man. He didn't come closer. He just stood there, watching me. Then, slowly, he turned and walked back toward the rear of the laundromat. I told the dispatcher everything. She told me to stay where I was, that officers were on the way. I stayed near the front, watching both directions. The man inside moved around in the back. I could hear him. Doors. Metal. Like he was trying something. The man outside stayed out of sight, waiting. Then suddenly, lights, red and blue, flashing across the windows. The man inside ran, straight to the back. A loud alarm went off. I hadn't even known there was another door. The man outside disappeared immediately. By the time the police arrived, both of them were gone. Later, they told me what likely happened. There was a service door in the back. It led to the alley. It had been tampered with, left unlocked. One of them had probably been inside before I even arrived, watching, waiting, to see if I was alone, if I stayed long enough, if I was worth approaching. I never went back there again. And now, whenever I go into a place late at night, I don't just look at who's there. I think about who might already be inside, before I even walk in.